Yeah, so I'm all for freedom of speech. I really am. I'm all for people with ideas that I find reprehensive having the opportunity to share those ideas. And we got that on display this weekend in Washington, D.C. There was a rally, and the reason I'm bringing this up because there's obviously the substance of what happened at this Nazi rally, but also the coverage from the media and the approach that the media has taken to cover it has been absurd and obscene. So there was a rally in the Ronald Reagan building in D.C. over the weekend for, quote unquote, the National Policy Institute. Sounds innocent enough, sounds innocuous enough. The National Policy Institute is headed by Richard Spencer. And I don't know if I have another picture of this guy, but I'll put this one up. Richard Spencer is, according to Mother Jones, Richard Spencer is the dapper white nationalist. Hell, put it on the screen now. This is the headline from Mother Jones. Meet the dapper white nationalist riding the Trump wave. As if it makes a difference that he knows how to coordinate his clothing and all of a sudden it's okay. Never mind the fact that he's a Nazi. It's important that we identify that he's a clean-cut Nazi because clean-cut Nazis are not as threatening as the goth Nazis, the caricature of neo-Nazis that we know of. He skipped over the neo-Nazi era of the skinheads, and he's gone back to the dapper days of the 30s, Because, I mean, the SS men, their uniforms are nice and clean and precise. I mean, they were clean. This is a problem with our media. And it wasn't just here's another glamour shot profile. Meet the new quote unquote think tank in town. The alt-right comes to Washington, and you have Richard Spencer with his shades on and his nice sweater and all this bull. The problem is our media is feckless. So much of our media is feckless. Like whoever those editors are for LA Times and for Mother Jones, they need to be fired. Because the story is not that, oh, look, there's a dapper Nazi. The story is there's a Nazi think tank, quote unquote think tank, that's having a convention this weekend, and they're being promoted into or are propelled into the limelight because of Donald Trump, not by Donald Trump. Right? I don't want anyone to misconstrue my words. This is not something that Donald Trump himself has endorsed, but this is something that has rolled into town on the coattails of Donald Trump. And they say as much. So that's the story. But apparently for Mother Jones, it's how clean cut this man. I almost said cracker. I didn't say it, but I wanted to. How clean cut this Nazi was. That's just as bad. That's even worse, right? So let's talk about what he said. I am an asshole if I've never seen one in my life. So actually, I have a clip. I'm going to play a clip of what he said because it's better to just hear from him.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory! No one will honor us for losing gracefully. No one mourns the great crimes committed against us. For us, it is conquer or die. The mainstream media, or perhaps we should refer to them in the original German, Lügenpresse. It's not just that they are leftist and cucks. It's not just that many are genuinely stupid. Indeed, one wonders if these people are people at all. Or instead soulless Gollum, animated by some dark power to repeat whatever talking point John Oliver stated the night before. To be white is to be a striver, a crusader, an explorer, and a conqueror.
Yeah.
We build, we produce, we go upward.
Yeah.
And we recognize the central lie of American race relations.
What's that, bitch?
We don't exploit other groups. We don't gain anything from their presence. They need us and not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Within the very blood in our veins as children of the sun lies the potential for greatness. By the way. That is the great struggle we are called to.
Mm-hmm.
We are not meant to live in shame and weakness and disgrace. We were not meant to beg for moral validation from some of the most despicable creatures to ever populate the planet. We were meant to overcome all of it, because that is natural and normal for us.
All right.
The press has clearly decided to double down and wage war against the legitimacy of Trump.
Okay. All right. I decided to let that clip that was pieced together by The Atlantic, credit out to The Atlantic, let that play in its 2 minutes entirety, of 2 minutes, whatever. So there's zero need for us to discuss the merits of his words. What we should discuss is the presence that and the platform that he has been afforded by the rise of Trump. And I always told people, and you who have been with me for the longest, you know I'm telling the truth when I say this. It's not so much Trump. It's the people that he inspires. And you could ask the question, were these people here before Trump? Yes. Yes, they've been here. They're going to always be here. But do they have, before Trump, had they had this level of prominence and position, and would they have had this if Trump had lost? No. No, they would not have had this. This is their day. This is as the president of the neo-Nazi party stated that Donald Trump presented an opportunity for Nazis in America. The Klan, the KKK, recognized the opportunity of Trump because he is giving voice to a bunch of people who see equality as oppression, because that's really what it is. They feel as though because they can't go around and call people cucks and go around and call people, you know, all the other words that I'm just not brave enough to say on my own show, just because they can't go around and say those things, they are somehow oppressed. And now they have to weave this narrative of being conquerors who are going to overcome and champion. And all I have to say is fools jump up to get smacked down. Be careful, because you may think we are you know, intellectuals and people who are just going to sit around and navel gaze and think about the implications of your words. But there's a good portion of many of us who would just slap a bitch right in his face. Just so that we're clear, right? And I thought about it because this dude is from Boston. I'm like, maybe I'll have him in the studio so we can show him just how non-supreme or unsupreme his thinking is. But then I thought about that thing because it could really go either way, right? We could really discuss the nuances of the problems with his ideology, or I could just smack a bitch, right? And because it's really unpredictable, it's probably best that we do it over Skype, you know, if we do it at all. But because there's a level of, people try to whitewash Nazism and white supremacy and make it seem like, oh, it's separation, that they just want to be proud of their race and be separate from other races. But it's something much deeper and far more nefarious than that, because it is this view that he espoused here of being the conqueror, the dominant one. Who are you? If you are a conqueror, that means you are subjecting someone else to your rule, which means that you don't believe in equality. So this weasel way that they get out of admitting that they are racist and bigots and every other, whatever you want to describe, the way they weasel their way out is they fall back and say, oh, we're not about suppressing other people. We're about black people being with black people. We just want segregation. Asian people with Asian people and white people with white people. But then you hear this speech where he's clearly talking about suppressing other groups, oppressing other groups, and how they feel marginalized because they have had to ask permission to say, anyway, all I can say is some ideas aren't really worth unpacking. What is worth unpacking is that this is what's riding on the coattails of Donald Trump. And if Bill Clinton could fix his mouth to repudiate Sister Soldier for talking about black power in the presence of oppression. See, there's a difference. I will give you this. There is a difference between black power and white power. The difference between someone saying white power and black power is that black power was born out of oppression. It came out of a place where we had to assert our right to be powerful. We had to assert our right to be in the midst of being oppressed, right? There's a difference between saying black power in the midst of fighting for your freedom and someone saying white power in the midst of oppressing someone else. There's a difference between saying black is beautiful and European beauty standards, right? We had to say black is beautiful because people told us for generations, for hundreds of years, that everything about black people was not beautiful. You see what I'm saying? So there is a difference, and don't let anybody fool you. There's clearly a difference. That's the only thing worthwhile talking about this. Everything else he said in that video, I'll just say it again. Fools jumped up, just get smacked down. Because there's really no place, there's no space for that type of rhetoric to go unchallenged, right? You get no safe space. Not for that. You get you're nobody. Hell, if Mike Spence couldn't get a safe space at Hamilton, you sure as hell know that people like this should not be afforded a safe space. You come into public with that and you get pushed back on. And depending on who you run into, it could be something rhetorical like me, or it could be something like getting slapped like me, depending on what day of the week it is. All right. Enough about this. And then Mother Jones. I just saw this headline again. The dapper white nationalist. I was talking about, I was talking about it before. Some ideas, even though they have the right to exist, sometimes they need to be beat. I don't care how you want to define beat. They need to be beat back into the dredges of society. And they will come back. You cannot destroy them. We should not aim to destroy them. We should not aim to be the thought police, but you should be embarrassed. You should be too embarrassed to come into public and say some ignorant shit like this dude said. But that's not where we are anymore in America. We are in Trump's America, where they're finding the right. They feel free now. They feel free. This is the one thing. This is the last thing I'll say about him. Maybe. Here's the last thing I'll say about it. I was at the Tea Party event on Thursday, and we were talking about race, and they were super uncomfortable, and I super didn't give a damn. But I pointed out to them that even though that room may not have been racist, you clearly had to co-sign with a level of racism, a certain level of racism, and a certain level of a certain group, rather, of people who got their kicks and their pleasure out of insulting other people and insulting other people based on their identity. And where I was making a hypothetical observation, the guy sitting right next to me raised up his hand and said, "That's me." He said, "That's who I am. I like that. And that's why I like Trump." That's who we're dealing with. And yes, people like that need to be, I don't know, type of world I want to live in. You would at least want people who to anyway, fuck it. I ain't talking about it no more. There's no rationalizing these idiots. Come see me though. I am in Boston. What's his name again? Richard Spencer, whatever. I would insult him and say Fuhrer, but he would probably like that shit. Richard Spencer We are in Boston. I will gladly send you the address to the studio so that you can come.